Yes, yes. Welcome and come well to another episode, another doorway, another portal entitled Am I as I am? Most importantly, as you are. Today's topic and question is what is the Christ effect? What is the Christ effect? Now, let's just dive right into this. I don't want to waste any more time with this. Let's go right into today's lesson, today's teaching, today's sharing. Okay, the first doorway is the Christ effect or Christ results or Christ alchemy is the transformation and conversion of that which was into that which now is. Christ or this Christ phenomenon can be seen and interpreted as a kind of death. This Christ effect can be interpreted as a pregnancy. This Christ effect can be interpreted as a birth or a birthing. This Christ effect can be interpreted as a fast or fasting when one fasts. This Christ effect can be interpreted as a certain kind of premonition that one may receive, or prophesizing, or an intuition. This Christ effect can be seen as a calling. The Christ effect can be seen as a certain kind of reception or receiving. This Christ effect can be seen as an action. It is a cosmic inevitability, a spiritual phenomenon, and a psychological tuning, a biochemical exchange, and an atomical implosion. What is all that to say what? The Christ effect. The key word is effect. We already know today's topic is the Christ. And today's topic and title was the Christ effect. What is the Christ effect? But instead of the word Christ, let's drop that down and understand the word effect. The key word today is the effect. Because the effect derives from a cause. And the effect is, or the Christ is the result of the effect. The cause is something more primal, more divine, something that is inevitable, that has to take place at some time between time and space, inside of every single individual. This Christ effect is also known as awareness, when one gains consciousness and dives deeper into their subconscious. It's the maturity of a being, so to say. That's why it says a kind of dying is a certain kind of death. And I'm going to make more examples as well while I'm talking about how Christ effect can also be seen as a certain kind of pregnancy or birth or birthing of some sort. Something which comes anew, something which happens from something, an effect that happens or unfolds from a kind of primal cause, an internal, an innate cause. Something happens, a clock. The clock is up, something happens during a certain kind of divine clock, so to say. It's going to get more clearer as we go along. If you are familiar with this channel, I appreciate y'all, my subconscious subscribers. Like I say to others, I say to y'all, like I say to anybody else, if you find this light relative and relevant to you and yours, spread it, share it, and let's get this message out. Also, when I'm saying in there too, when I'm talking about the Christ effect, can also be a certain kind of fasting because you're getting rid of something. And you're transforming into something else. You're converting into something else. This is what the Christ effect is. It's a certain kind of, I'm just touching upon the surface of it, but it's going to get more clearer as I go along. a premonition, a prophesizing, an intuition, a calling, a reception, an action. Once again, it is an effect that is the result of a cause. And the result of an effect is what we call this Christios presence. It's Christios intelligence of some sort to some degree. Okay. The next doorway is the Christ effect is a psychological alarm clock connected to the zeitgeist intelligence. It is a physiological wake up, something internally inevitable which is to take place at precise timing between time and space. It is a divine time bomb of some sort, of a genetic implosion and neuronal explosion. Now, when it happens, you're not going to be able to understand why it's happening. Nobody really has the true answer as to why it happens. We have clues, spiritual clues, cosmic clues, divine hints, certain kind of alignments and synchronicities that occur that speak to us, but most importantly, speak through us. And we just get this kind of knowing that turns on. And when I say time bomb of some sort, I mean something internal, something innate, something insidious which happens. That's why I say it is a genetic implosion, like an atomic implosion, and a genetic and neuronal explosion, which is where you get the crown behind the Christ figure or the Christ picture. The crown is is basically the neuronal explosion that occurs in the mind of who and what you are, which is God. Okay? So Christ is the explosion, the mind explosion, or the neuronal explosion from a genetic and atomic implosion. Implosion is something exploding inward, and an explosion is that inward expressing itself as that outward explosion. So when inward, outward intelligence occurs as an effect from an internal cause, and that explosion as a result or an effect of the cause of an implosion, that explosion as a cause and effect of an implosion is the Christ effect. Okay? Just to make sure we understand and we're on the same page. And when I said the Christ effect is a psycho-spiritual alarm clock connected to the zeitgeist intelligence, zeitgeist is a German word, but it just means basically a spiritual movement or something inevitable that is to be, that will be, and nothing can stop it. It's a certain kind of divine or cosmic fate or cosmic destiny, something that just is, something that reoccurs every thousands or tens of thousands of years every time. It's a constant cycling intelligence, a divine cycling intelligence, which always occurs at a certain period. And those who are at a certain kind of frequency and vibration within their self and their being will experience this cosmic alignment internally. Because once again, there's nothing out there. That's known as a holographic universe or the petty universe. And we were always taught and understood and know that that which is out there is actually something inside of us. So we didn't have to look outside. We just felt the experience, or we felt the presence. We knew something was going on inside of us. And then we looked up and it just aligned. There was certain kind of different star grids and star constellations in our presence that weren't there before. So we just made the connection, basically. That's why I said a physiological wake up. Physio is the physical body, logical is the psychological. So physiological, it was an up and down, a down and up and down, together, a wholeness kind of implosion, explosion, a cause and effect, effectual intelligence that happened internally, innately, insidiously within our being. And that explosion, once again, is the crown you see on Christ's head, or the corona, the crown, or we want to call it, because the neuronal explosion happened from a genetic and atomic implosion. Okay? Just breaking certain things down as we go along. The next doorway is the Christ result is the light. The Christ result, or the Christ effect, is the light that protrudes from the darkness. The darkness being inside our body, inside our being, inside of ourselves, so to say, if you want to make it a little more clearer to understand. The Christ result or the Christ effect is the light, the consciousness, which derives or protrudes from the dark, the subconsciousness or the subconscious. In other words, it's the order that's delivered from the chaos. That's why you see this Jesus character give order to things that he seen was disorder. Like, I'm going to flip over tables. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be selling that. You should be living this way. You should be doing this, doing that. This character, Jesus, uh, is just implying a principle from chaos to order. So his orderly ways, it wasn't really based on human ways or humanity, so to say, because they had him in his human character. So you're thinking, okay, what you mean, like good and bad things with humans? You know, that's good and that's bad. We shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be doing this. No, it was alchemical caricatures or alchemical characters that, or alchemy disguised as characters or human bodies or human people with certain kind of morals, um, and certain kind of standards. But it's actually an alchemical process that happens. The chaos was derived, or the order was derived from the chaos. But in a way of looking at it, that order that he was doing meant that the implosion was turning into the explosion, into the order to be, the order of the day, the order of the chaos, the order of the cosmos. So in a way, from he was doing order, and that was symbolic of the implosion taking place inside of the body. You understand what I'm saying? So, in other words, it's the order that's delivered from the chaos. The light that derives from the darkness, the light is the order. The darkness is the chaos. But the light is still a result and effect which protruded from the darkness. So that is the new order. And that new order is also the new chaos or the old chaos reviving itself as the new order. But that new order is actually the chaos of the day. Because you know anything about cosmos, anything about anything going on in your body, is always constantly chaotic. This is why you are male and female, female and male. These are sentient entities and energies in your body that are constantly at chaos with each other to keep you a male, or chaos with each other to keep you what you appear as a female. And it's not like a war where there's killing and those. No, it's just keeping a certain kind of harmonious balance within you, so that you maintain the sex that you are, that you appear to be, that you came out the womb as. See, this order and chaos, chaos and order, the understanding of these kind of this kind of wordplay. But you get the clear picture as we go on. The next doorway is to understand what this is. Now, when I say that this Christ effect is, before when I said with the first doorway, the Christ effect, it can be known as a certain kind of, explosion, things of that nature. I'm going to show you just certain examples of what the Christ looks like, the Christ effect looks like. Now, as you know, the Christ aspect with the arms out. This is also the Christ effect, which is the human body. This is known as the Christ effect. So that cross that you see, that lowercase t on the alphabet, is the Christ effect. And the T, letter T, is the 20th letter on the alphabet. 10 fingers, 10 toes, the human body. Up, down, as above, so below, as below, so above. The cross, always remember the cross is the lowercase letter T, and the letter T in the alphabet is the 20th letter, number 20, 10 fingers, 10 toes, the human body, the Christ effect, the explosion. You see this explosion happening? That's the crown of the corona that you see around the head of the character Jesus. Okay? Just to make certain examples, certain pictorial examples. And when I said as well, it can be a certain kind of, also known as a certain kind of pregnancy or a certain kind of birthing, the Christ effect. something is transforming, something is happening, something is converting into something new that it wasn't before, which is what we know as embryogenesis, which goes through 3 stages: gamete, zygote, embryo. This is another form of the Christ effect. Now, this is actually where this came from. This predates this. This is known as the Aquaba or Aquaba from a people called the Bara or the Badarians, which is what they call in Wikipedia and Google. The Badarian people were actually people who were there before what you know as the Comitian people or the people of Kemet or the Egyptians or the Egyptios. They were there first, and they created this called the Aquaba from the Bada across from the Takwa people. The Bada, they're known as the Badarian people. I don't want to get too crazy into the history of understanding what I'm talking about. But this was also the Christ effect, as you see it's in the same letter T. The head top, the arms spread out. And this was a doll or some kind of figurine that was given to women who couldn't give birth, had trouble giving birth, or wanted to give birth. And basically, this was made for them. Okay, once again, the Bada, the people of Bada, before the Kemet or the Comitian people were there, they were the actual original settlers of what we know as Egypt or Kemet. And they created this called the Aquaba doll or the Aquaba figure. Aqua-BA. Okay, so that's also known as the Christ. This is the Christ effect, a birthing, or to give birth, or to rebirth, or to help with birth, or to help someone or woman get pregnant. Okay, so that's known as the Christ effect. This, of course, you know, was known as the Christ effect as well. We're looking at the same letter T over and over and over and over and over again. This is where the cross came from. Okay, this is where the cross came from. Now, some may say that, yeah, this was the womb, the circle part was the womb, and, this was the womb, and this was the phallus, and these two lines on the side protruded were the children that came about from the conceiving or conception between man and woman. Absolutely as well. That's also right and exact. Okay, you can say that as well. This is why my uncle was created a certain way as well. Well, yeah, in a certain way, it was created in a certain way. Well, this would be symbolic of this. This would be symbolic of the womb, because in the woman's womb is where you see yourself. That's why she gives birth to Heru or Heru, which is her you. When you take with the word Heru, and you see the word her in there, and you take the word her and separate it from the letter U, you have her you, which means her version of you, which is the child. The child comes out as her version of you, which is the Heru. So this is symbolic of the womb in a certain way of understanding. I'm going to give you another understanding of what is known as the Ankh, which is also the Christ. This is the Christ effect. Okay. This as well is also known as the Christ effect. Now, as you can see, it's not the womb this time. This is the embryo, as you can see. So now, this part, what we call what was known as the womb, or what was seen as the womb at one time, can also be seen as where the embryo was developing, where you was developing, where I was developing at one time, which is right here. You see the child in there, the baby in there. So this basically can also not just be seen as the womb, but can also be seen as where embryogenesis and everything developed from, right? And the two things on the side are not the children, as you said before, but these are her fallopian tubes. The right fallopian tube, the left, or the egg. The fallopian tubes right there, the embryo right here, And this part right here was known as the uterus, where the phallus would go in. See? Affect the ovary and create the birth of Heru, or the child, which was you. You are Heru. I am Heru when it comes to the Commission understanding. So this is also the Christ, talking about the part where I said about the pregnancy and the birth and the birthing. As you can see, once again, the lowercase letter T, the 20th letter in the alphabet, 20, 10 fingers, 10 toes, 10 plus 10 is 20. Okay, this is also known as the Christ effect, which means something coming about, something being born, somebody pregnant. Another example of the Christ effect, like I said, when I was dealing with the anatomy and the biology, and the atom of the body, certain ways. This is also an example of the Christ effect. This is a light photon, which is a particle of light that has no mass, that they say is faster than the speed of light. Check out, do your little your science physics research and study, and you understand what a light photon is. Now, this is a picture of a light photon. As you can see, once again, the lowercase t, the Christ, or the transformation from the Jesus character into the Christ intelligence. The explosion of light, the crown, the corona. Okay, implosion, explosion, the Christ effect. This is the Christ result, the Christ effect. And of course, everybody knows this picture as well of the atom. As you can see, you turn it a little bit any which way, that's the letter T, the lowercase letter T. Turn it this way, it's a lowercase letter T. Any way you turn it is going to be the lowercase letter T. It's symbolic of a crisscrossing. Crisscross, Christ, Christ, the crossing. See, so even the group crisscross back in the day was a ritual of Christ in a certain kind of way. That's why one was dark and one was light. Yin and yang polarity, up and down and up, as within, so without, as above, so below. Same kind of understanding. This is also the Christ effect. The atom, proton, neutron, electron, molecule, compound, and this transform from the atom to the neutron, to the proton, to the electron, that converts or transforms over into the molecule, that crossover is also the Christ over, or the Christ effect. And that molecule turning into a compound is also the crossover, or the Christ over, or the Christ effect, or the Christ results. Okay, so this is also a form of what we know as the Christ effect. And this as well, last but not least, this is an atomic explosion. This is basically the splitting of an atom. The splitting of an atom goes in directions. Once again, the explosion from an implosion. The explosion is the effect or the result of an implosion, internally, innately, insidious. Okay, once again, you see it spreading out, right, left, right? The Jesus character on the cross, his arms spread right and left. This is also known as the Christ, or the Christ effect, or the Christ result. Okay, the atomic nucleus being split. Just want to make that clear before we move forward, before we move on. It's another way of interpreting what the Christ effect is. The next doorway is, and also, this is also the Christ. This is also the Christ, which is 100% pure crystal. Not crystal quartz or smoky quartz crystal. This is pure crystal, 100% natural crystal. This crystal is the Christ, or the Christ L. Okay, the Christ L. And L just means star, which once again, the explosion, the Christ explosion. It keeps tying right back. Remember, this channel is for people who have a mind, who are not afraid to step out the boundaries and bondage of their brain, to discover and acknowledge that they actually have a mind and tap into that. Okay, everything's based on common sense. I think I'm keeping it pretty damn simple. Okay, there's nothing complex or complicated in what I'm saying, or even how I'm explaining, or how I'm teaching, or how I'm sharing. It's very quite simple. Like I said, it's funny, it's backwards. They say people, well, I'm not with that spiritual stuff and, all that spirituality and visibleness and this and that. And that's, that's real difficult. That's complicated. And it's like, nah, this is actually very simple. The only one who's complicated here, being very complex, is you. How you think, if you can think, if you even know how to think, is being very difficult, very complex, very complicated. What I'm saying is extremely simple to understand. Okay? Let's make that clear, like a crystal. The next doorway is the Christ. What is the Christ? When we talk about this Christ thing, what is the Christ really? What is the understanding of the Christ? The Christ is a rebel, like they shown in the Jesus character. He wasn't dealing with the order. He said, nah, I'm not dealing with that shit. Nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. We need to do this, need to do that. Do that, do that. This is the new order of the day. That ain't working. That ain't working. This is a new thing. We want to get this going. So the Christ is this Christ intelligence. We talked about the Christ effect, which is also connected to the Christ intelligence, but the Christ intelligence is a rebel. The Christ intelligence is a free radical. Now, when I'm talking about the Christ intelligence, I'm talking about the way of thinking, how you think and how you move, and the actions that you make, what you feel may not be able to explain or articulate it very clearly. But you're feeling something and you're doing something and you're being of a certain action. The Christ intelligence or the Christ force is a rebel. The Christ force and intelligence is a free radical. The Christ force and the Christ intelligence is one who disturbs order. The Christ force and the Christ intelligence is one who breaks repetition. The Christ force and the Christ intelligence is the anti-one, or the one who is anti. The Christ intelligence is the genius amongst the brilliant. Genius amongst brilliance. That's the Christ intelligence. All of this is to say that the Christ is the soul, not the spirit. The Christ is the soul. Once you understand the difference, spirit is one who follows order, who takes order and follows order. The soul is the one who rebels against the order. So it's not the spirit of Christ, so to say. It's the soul of Christ, or the Christ soul, not the Christ spirit or the spirit of Christ. Because the soul is something which predates the spirit. The soul is the thing which sends the spirit out for the mission, and the spirit covers itself over with the human body. You see, so the spirit is the worker for the soul. And the soul is the most oldest aspect of your being. See, just like it switches bodies, you chill with this lifetime to get what you get from it, and you go on to your next mission. The soul is the one that does that. The spirit, that's why the spirit stays here, so to say, without getting too deep into that and getting off topic. This is why people can communicate with people's spirits when they leave the body. Even in the body as well, you can also communicate with the spirit. They just say when somebody dies or somebody leaves, that's when you can communicate. No, you can do it now while in the body. But so to say what I'm talking about, as far as what I'm talking about, when the person leaves the body, or the being or the soul exits the body, the spirit remains here, which means that the spirit belongs here, or in natural environments or physical environments, and it's utilized by the minds of others who are connected to it, or what it's connected to, or who knew that person at one time, and principles and qualities they represent, to, without getting too crazy into it, but certain things with rituals and ceremonies and seances and things of that nature. But it's a very, very extremely real thing. But the soul, getting back to the topic, So when I'm explaining the rebel, the radical, things of that nature of what the Christ intelligence is and what the Christ force is, understand that the Christ is the soul of Christ, the Christ soul, not the Christ spirit or the spirit of Christ. Get that out your head. It's the soul Christ or the solar Christ or the Christ soul. So when I'm explaining Christ, I'm explaining the soul, what the soul is, the principles of what a soul is, not a spirit, the soul. Once again, the Christ force is a rebel, a free radical. The Christ force is one who disturbs order, one who breaks repetition. The Christ force is the anti-one or the one who is anti. The Christ force is the genius amongst the brilliant. The Christ force is the soul. The Christ force is the mind. The Christ force is the heart, which is why you see the character Jesus holding the heart. And I made this pretty clear in my other video. What the hell? One of my other videos, I put a picture, certain pictures of, you came from the heart, you entered through the heart, so you exit here through the heart. In that video, I show pictures of many depictions of this Christ Jesus person, or even other pictures of ancient pictures as well of the Olmec or the sheep people, Mayan pictures of certain things, depiction of claymate or clay work of people holding the heart or showing the heart for certain reasons. So the Christ force or the Christ intelligence is the mind, the heart. The Christ intelligence is the oddball. The Christ intelligence is the black sheep. This is why you become conscious or spiritual, enlightened to some degree, and you begin to kind of, you don't intentionally distance yourself from family and people that you know, but something in you just keeps you at a distance. And the distance is also can be seen as looking at things from bird's eye view rather than being in the crowd or eye to eye level people, because you get to see things that others can't see, and you have access to things that others are denied access to or don't yet have access to in that moment. Okay. The Christ effect or Christ force is a leader. The Christ force or the Christ intelligence is the one who crossed or who crossed over. This is the Christ. The Christ is the crossed or the crossing over. See? So, and this is why you see DMX, the entertainer DMX, the artist known as DMX, he always threw up the X. And the X was the Christ or the crossing or the crossover, the DMX. And he crossed over from him being of a chaotic nature, and then all of a sudden, what did he start to do? He started to go into Christ. He started to understand the Christ according to his understanding, his interpretation, and how he took it. However, it made sense to him. Nothing taken away, nothing given to the person. Just his interpretation. But as you see, that crossing or that crossing he kept doing, the cross that he kept doing, put him into that slot or that point of focus of the Christ, or that which is known as the Christ energy, the Christ force. And then he went from being the dog into being the Christ, or to being the crossover intelligence, or the intelligence of the cross, the one who crossed. Okay, now these are just a few, maybe 3 or 4 of what the Christ in the Bible was, what it said who the cross was. The Christ was. In Isaiah 34:6, they say the Lord has a sword. It is sated with blood. Now they're talking about the Lord. They're talking about Christ in this quote in the Bible. Now, why would the Lord or the Christ have a sword, and that sword that he is holding is sated with blood? Once again, I told you, the Christ effect or the Christ force is a rebel. The Christ force is the free radical, the one who disturbs order, the one who is anti, the soul, the leader, the chaos. When I say soul, I mean chaos. When I say the word spirit, I mean order. This is why he was chaotic, or Not he, but it is a chaotic force. It is a chaotic intelligence, what you know as Christ. There wasn't no person. There was no such thing. They're talking about something alchemical that happens within the body and mind, within the atom, the genetics, and the neurons of the body, of the human body. Something that happens within you, something that happened within me. This thing that you see right now in front of you, how I am, this is because the Christ effect happened to me. The Christ result happened to me. The Christ force happened to me. The Christ intelligence communicated with me internally. Not communicated to me, but most importantly, communicated through me. All you see right now in your face is the Christ force. I am a result. I am an effect of the Christ force. Okay? I am Christ. How about that one? Also in Isaiah 34:6 of the Bible, or the Holy Babylon, or the Holy Babel, or the Holy Bridle, as I mentioned before in my other videos. The quote is, "A great slaughter in the land of Edom. Their land shall drink its fill of blood." You got a lot of blood going on, a lot of bloodshed, and a lot of chaos happening in the Bible amongst this Christ or Lord figure. Once again, it points you directly to the point and the fact that what is known as the Christ or the Christ effect is a very chaotic force. It has nothing to do with loving little kids and holding lambs and sheep and walking across some land with sandals on and a garment on. And this person, that has nothing to do with anything. Okay? They made something which is beautiful and chaotic in the cosmos and at an atomic level. Try to look beautiful on the outskirts or the human body, but there's actually a very chaotic force. It's a chaotic nature. It's a hideous, chaotic nature. It's hideous here, but it's beautiful over there in the crossover, in the Christ over, in that dimension, that reality, that paradigm, that realm of understanding when you come to that. Next story is what's known as the Christ is the aesthetic formula of the soul. And the soul, which is your essential nature, is the elemental elixir of your alchemical innocence. So the very chaos that you are is your alchemical innocence. So it may be chaotic and hideous on the outskirts, so to say, but it's something beautiful and innocent within and inside of you. It's a beautiful unfolding. It's a beautiful revelation happening within you. But on the outside, you create human action. You get chaotic because something is rumbling inside of you. It's the Christ intelligence, the Christ communication talking to you. It's the Christ effect about to take place any second, any moment, any nanosecond. Okay? And this is why in the Bible, once again, in Matthew 18:3, it says, "Truly I tell you, unless you become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." The kingdom is also the kingdom, which is the mind. The dome, the kingdom. Dome always means the head of the mind, in a way of understanding. Dome also means dim, which is the subconscious, which is the darkest part of your mind, the deepest part of your mind, and the darkest aspect, which is where dark magic and all stuff comes from. Just means the darkness or the darkest aspect of your mind, which is the subconscious mind. So the kingdom is the kingdom or the king domain or the king dim, the dimness. Okay, and king is also kin. So make of it what you will. The heaven is also the haven. Your haven, your safe haven, your sanctum. In other words, your sacred spot within you, the most sacred spot within you. Okay, heaven, haven, sanctum, sacred, which also connects to a lot of other different things. But I'll leave that for more Zoom. Once again, like I always say, if you want to get more deep on these videos, we can hold a Zoom chat. I'm also preparing what you call them damn things, presentations or classes, seminars and classes based upon the science, and it goes a lot deeper. Because, like I said, I'm not going to get too crazy on YouTube on a social platform. You're never going to see me get crazy, too crazy, historically, chronologically, ancestrally. No, in any way, in any form, I'm not going to get too deep on YouTube. Never will. Those are left for private engagements, personal engagements, and Zoom sessions. So, get back to the message. What's known as the Christ is the aesthetic formula of the soul, the formula of the soul, the formula, the chemical, the alchemical, which is your essential nature. Your soul is your essential nature. Essential nature means the essence of your nature, or your nature's essence. Essential nature is your soul, which is where the Christ effect or the Christ force exists. And your soul is the elemental elixir of your alchemical innocence. The elemental elixir. Elixir is just something that brews, something that you're brewing up, a mixing or a combination of things. And the elemental elixir is a combination of elements: fire, air, earth, and water. Most importantly, first and foremost, time. The elemental elixir of your alchemical innocence. Elements, chemical, innocence, purity, the soul. That's the internal intelligence. The external intelligence, or the external intelligence, is the chaos. Okay, different reflections. Okay, so you must become like children to enter the kingdom of heaven. You must get in touch with your innocence. You must get in touch or come in contact with your purity, or the purest state of yourself, or the purest aspect of yourself, or the ripest point, the ripest primal point of your being, which is your soul. Okay. The child, and child is also chi, and chi is energy. So you must get to the most energetical aspect of your being, where energy is, which is the soul, the most primal point, the most alpha point of your beingness. Okay, everything points to this. There's a lot of wordplay, a lot of word trickery play, certain things that you have to understand. This is when you're dealing with the understanding of language arts. Language arts and things of that nature, a little historical background, and looking at certain things, how people always play with words. You also have to play with words, because words are nothing but composed of letters, and letters ain't nothing but symbols that is composed in the alphabet. The alphabet is the alpha beta, which is nothing but different brain waves and different brain frequencies that are in your brain dealing with symbology. And symbology and symbols deals with repetition, things of that nature, and color and trauma, which is also connected back to the subconscious mind, which is the deeper aspect of your conscious mind. Just like the soul is the most deepest aspect of the spirits. Everything is pointing you back to the soul, to the rebel, to the chaos, to the primal points, to the very beginnings of your beginnings. The soul, the end. Next doorway is, you don't believe in a Christ. Not supposed to believe in a Christ. You are supposed to become the Christ, like I had became the Christ. You are supposed to become the Christ. You don't believe in a Christ. It's like me believing, I'm going to believe that I'm talking to you. I'm going to believe I have a video going right now. I'm recording the video. I'm going to believe. That doesn't make any sense, because I'm actually having a video. There's nothing to believe. See what I'm saying? So you're not supposed to believe in a Christ. You're supposed to become the Christ. Once again, it's something internal. It's a transformation. It's a conversion, alchemical conversion, energetical conversion, because energy transforms. It doesn't stop. It doesn't end. It just transforms. So you're supposed to transform into the Christ intelligence. Once again, a Bible quote in Corinthians 4:16. What is Christ saying? He says, "So I beg you, be like me." If that doesn't say it all, I'm going to keep going further, because the lesson isn't over yet. But if just that quote don't say it all in Corinthians 4:16, so I beg you, it's begging you, be like me. Don't, it didn't say, so I beg you believe in me. It said, so I beg you be like me. It's the difference. You see the difference? If you have common sense, you understand the difference. So he's saying, transform into me. So if he's saying transform into me, then he's saying I am inside of you. Find me inside of you and turn into me. That's all he's saying in Corinthians 4:16. Right? What else is he saying? Something that you have to become. Once again, like I said, you don't believe in the Christ. Don't believe in the Christ. Become the Christ. Stop getting caught in these characters and what they did. So, that's the surface forefront of your understanding until you get into the wisdom, or you're learning something, knowledge. You're getting knowledge of something, and you get wise to the knowledge you're learning, and then you understand. Understanding is the overcoming and the umbrella of the knowledge and the wisdom. You got the knowledge, now you become wise to why you got the knowledge, so that the wisdom matures into the understanding. Once you understand, you no longer zoom in no more on the characters and what they did, and their favorite food and meals on Wednesdays, and what they wore, and who their cousins were, and that story form. Even a story is starry. It's a star. You have to connect the stars, and once you understand the stars out there ain't nothing but internal connections of synapses in your brain. Because one star lighting into another star next to another star in the darkest of skies at night, when you look up in the morning or at nighttime, these light dots, if you were to look inside your skull and your brain, it looks just like synapses going off from one neuron, from one brain neuron to the next, from one brain neuron to the next. These sparks of light are the stars. So a story is a starry or a synaptical phenomenon. Okay? One electrical conduit going through another, into another, to create another, to create something else, transforming, transformation, conversion, the Christ. Right? Also in the Bible, Galatians 4:12, it says, brothers, I entreat you, become like me, for I also have become like you are. You do me no wrong. This is once again in the Holy Babylon, or the Holy Babel, or the Holy Bridle, or the Holy Babalu, which is what you call the Bible, which is the Holy Umbilical, because Bible is umbilical, which means once again the baby, the birth, the pregnancy, the Christ effect. Don't you get it? Once again, he's saying, become like me. I have also become like you are. So what is he saying? Once you become him, or once you become it, once you are one with it, take this HIM word out the equation. Pardon me for that. I don't want to redirect your minds into some sex or some kind of person. No. It. Once you become it, then there's no longer reading the story no more, because you become the story. You become the starry. You become the star grid, the constellation. You become this consciousness, the Christ consciousness, constellational consciousness, the star consciousness, the synaptical consciousness, to enter and access the mind. And the mind isn't here, the mind is here. This is all mind. Like they say, this is mind. This is all mind. Yeah, this is all mind. The mind is your atmosphere, your environment, this is the mind. The mind, I am sitting on the mind. This is the mind. This is the mind. This is the mind. This is my mind. The mind is your surrounding. Okay? It's not in here. In here is the brain. The synaptical connections kind of connect in a certain way to surpass itself, to supersede itself, so that you, the being, enter into your inherent mind. Want to go deep into that? Book a Zoom session. So understand that you are the doorway and conduit of pure potential and all possibility. You are the doorway and the conduit of all potential and all possibilities. This is how you turn into the Christ effect. The Christ effect is a simultaneous exchange and a divine trade. The trade-off is you acknowledging this fact and this science and giving attention, or acknowledging this fact and giving attention to the science that happens within you. Within the mind first, or the brain first, it trickles down into the body, and then you have a mind explosion. So what happens in the brain first trickles down into the body, and this becomes enlightened. And then now you become the intelligent, inherent mind that you are now qualified to receive and enhance and expand. You become enlightened. Enlight is the in light, and the end is the end of the inner light. Because now you become the dark, which is the chaos, the end of the light. So you're going past the consciousness, which is the light, and you're going into your subconsciousness, into the dark. You are in the in light, the inner light end. You are in light end, the end of the inner light. You meet the darkness, you meet the subconscious, you come face to face with the soul, and you become the Christ effect. The mind and the heart are connected. Understand this. Same damn thing. Okay? So, the Christ effect is a simultaneous exchange and a divine trade. You are its crossover, and it is your crossing. You will become it because it will become you. It can only exist through you, your mind, and your actions. This is why you hear that saying, God doesn't give reference to me, I give reference to God. Like once again, I said before in the videos, you are the hitman. The hitman is a human body. It only knows itself through the experience of you. It only knows of its existence through the experience of you. You are the doorway, you are the conduit, you are the bridge, you are the monkey in the middle, the thing in the middle. Get it? Got it. The next doorway is the Christ. When you look at the word, once again, language also, look at words, because words are played with, letters. You got to look at words, you got to break them down, you got to see what else they're related to, what they may sound like, what they spell like, and so on and so forth. The Christ is also the crust, which is the thing which appears at the end as a result of something. The Christ phenomenon appears at the end of days. It's like we see this weather now with the hurricane, it's chaos, and tornadoes and tsunamis, things of that nature taking place. Weather, the chaos of weather, the ending of days, which is nothing but the ending of a phase or the ending of a zeitgeist. It's not necessarily the end of humanity as we know it and the end of the world. Like I said, I don't believe in nothing first and foremost. But this is not no world, this is not no earth, this is not no planet. This is a plane of existence. Okay? So this is the end of days. The Christ phenomenon appears at the end of days, which is chaos appears at the end of a phase or the end of an age. So the Christ phenomenon appears at the end of an age or the ending of an age or age ending, going into a new age, into a new phase, into a new people, a new mind, a new way of doing, a new way, most importantly, of being. The Christ is the crust. As you know, the crust is on the pizza. You have a pizza. The crust is the thing that folds, or not the thing that folds, the thing that forms at the end of the cooking phase of the pizza, of the dough. The crust forms at the end of a slice. So the Christ is also the crust, which is the thing which appears at the end as a result of something. So the crust appears at the end of the pizza as the result of the pizza or the dough cooking. So the Christ is also known as the crust. When you look at once again, your holy umbilical, or your holy bride, or your holy Babylonian, or holy Babalu book, it says in Matthew 24:3-31, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Once again, they're talking about the Lord, they're talking about the Christ force. They're asking the Christ force or the Christ effect, what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? They're asking him, or asking it inside, when is the ending of the old me and the beginning of the new me? This is one having a dialogue with their self, their internal dialogue. And you can also find a lot of internal dialogues, or this Christ dialogue, or this Christ language, or this Christ conversation and Christ communication, one having a communication or communicating with their self. And you have books like the Hermetica or Hermes Trismegistus. You have things in there where Hermes is talking to Thoth. This is like God to God conversations. This is like two gods in the cosmos, or the heavens holding conversation and counsel on. They're talking about this divine language. This is being held and taking place. And you also have a section in the Hermes Trismegistus also called the Pomandries. And the Pomandries is almost identical to the Holy Bible book in the part of Genesis. This is where the Genesis came from the writings of the Hermes Trismegistus. The Hermes Trismegistus, the writings and the scripts and the text of that is over like 4,000 years old, over 8,000 BC. This is passed down, been passed down. So the Genesis part and Revelation and all that in the Holy Babel, or the Holy Bible, the Holy Babel, or the Holy Babalu book that you have, comes from Hermes Trismegistus, or things like, or teachings, or ponderings, mythology that turned into philosophy. But these conversations, divine conversations and divine communications, this is where that book came from. It came from writings and talks of that nature, of discussions and communications of that nature, one having a conversation with himself, one having a conversation with herself internally. It's basically describing a vision of the creation of the universe and the nature and fate of humanity. This is what the Pomandries uh, section of the Hermes Trismegistus, or the Hermetica, is talking about, which is once again the end of the fate of humanity and nature. This is once again, what is that? That's once again the Christ effect, the end of days, the end of phase, the end of an age. Okay, in which its creation myth seems partly inspired, or partly inspired Genesis. The fall has here become the descent of the primal man through the spheres of the planets to the world of nature. This is what that section of Pomandries is touching upon in the book called the Hermetica. You want to understand the mind of the Christ, or the mind of the Christ intelligence, or the mind of the Christ force, having a dialogue with itself, inside of itself, to itself, by itself, as itself. Get the book Hermetica, and also get the book Emerald Tablet as well. Okay, I don't get too off the topic at the moment. So they're asking him, what will be the sign of the coming, of your coming, and the end of age? Because when he comes, it is the end of age. When I arrive, it is the end of me. When you arrive, it is the end of you, and the new you sprouts. You are the chaos that derived from the order. You are also the order that derived from the chaos. Okay, it's the ending of one's ignorance and the beginning of one's wisdom. The ending of one's guessing and the beginning of one's knowing. When divine maturity has set in, when the calling is answered, a mind graduation. This is what the Christ effect is, the Christ force, and the Christ intelligence. The next doorway is the Christ, just like it was the crust. The Christ is also the crest, which is the top of a mountain or hill, i.e., looking over and down at bird's eye view of the followings. So what we know as the Christ, once again, play with the word Christ. What does it sound like? What does it look like? What other word does it look like? What other word does it sound like? It sounds like, just like it sounded like crust, it also sounds like the word crest. Christ is also the crest. I'll make it real clear to you. The crest is the top of a mountain or hill. All right, now let's look back in the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible says in Matthew 17:1-9. I just made an example of how the Christ was the crust when the example was in Matthew 24:3-31, which is the crust, the ending of something. And they asked him, what is the end of the age? Christ is also the crust. And in Matthew 17:1-9, when it says, and after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. Once again, Christ is also subliminal, a subliminal word. Christ is a subliminal word for a real word called crest, which is the top of something, the top of a mountain or a hill. Once again, he's telling you in the character took them to the top of a mountain, the high mountain, by themselves. Okay? Peter is also just means patah. Patah just means the builder, which is why he took them up the mountain, meaning that he built them up, or he built this, or this energy is a built up. And John, his brother, John, there was no letter J, so take the J out. It's an I, the ion, the ion. So Peter and James and John, his brother, and led them up a high mountain. Peter is once again the patah, which is the builder, and Peter is also Petra, which means the mineral. Peter, John, the ion, the ionic mineral, up a mountain, which is up the kundalini or up the energy. It upped the energy by themselves and transfigured before them. He transformed, once again, like I told you, the Christ effect or the Christ force or the Christ intelligence is a transformation taking place. An inevitable transformation that's going to take place between time and space. Okay? And his face shone like the sun, once again, the outspurting of the light from an implosion, creating an internal implosion, creating an external explosion. His face became like the sun, and his clothes became as white as light, which is once again bringing it back to the picture of the light photon or the photonic energy. It's all internal, it's all alchemical, it's all energy based. There is no people, there's no person, there's no tale, there's no story. As an occultist, as an adept, as a Gnostic, everything should be looked at as an immediate formula. Because the body at one time, tens of thousands of years ago, was known and treated as a cooking vessel. So this wasn't always called the human body. There was no human body. We seen this as a cooking vessel or a cooking pot. We had to cook up things. Once again, the elixir, the alchemical elixir. We had to cook things and mix things and combine things for the perfect combination to create the perfect formula to become the perfect Christ effect. To become the perfect effect. Christ was a later thing, later name, or later title down the line dealing with religion and things of that nature. But we wanted to have an effect. We knew we was the cause, and all we had to do was come up with the perfect formula, the perfect mixture in the laboratory of our mind. And then an effect would take place, which is what we call our consciousness, our awareness, and things of that nature. Okay. The Christ effect is the crown chakra. looking down over the lower chakra, which is basically the high network of mind, which overlooks the low network of the brain and the body. So you want to become the high networking of the mind and web out what they call a planet. It's a net. It's not a place. It's your mind. You are this is the earth. Your body is earth. Your body is world. Your body is planet. This is the netting. You have to create the netting, the web, which is the network, the net, the netting work, the work of net, or the netting work of the mind, overlooking the lower network of the brain and the body, which is what you call the veins, the arteries, things of that nature, because that's a webbing, that's a net. So it's the etheric net or the esoteric net looking over the exoteric net, or the exoteric netting and weaving of veins and things of that nature. Okay? The higher net looking over the lower web or the lower net. So you are the internal net. There is no internet, which is why we can be on the internet right now. I'm on the internet, so to say, at the moment, but I'm weaving an internal net within you, serpent style, kundalini style within you, all up in you. I'm weaving a net within your mind. I'm using the internet to create an internal net, and this internal net to turn you into the ether net, which is the eternal netting. So I'm turning your internals into an eternal. So let's use this internet to create an internal net within ourselves. The next doorway is the heaven and hell infused is the Christ metamorphosis, i.e. the crossed metamorphosis. When the heavens and hells collide, an explosion happens, and that explosion or obliteration is the Christ occurrence. When the lower nature meets its higher nature and transforms into an awakening. Do you comprehend? Do you comprende? Do you understand what I'm saying? It really is that simple. No, I'm not doing magic or pulling a rabbit out of the hat. If you have common sense and you keep a simple mind, this is going to get you like this. And you are going to apply it like this because you want to see the effect happen right away, right now. You can do it right now. Have different remedies and different applications how you can apply certain things and a certain kind of mindset and a whole different thing that I'm working on the presentation and classes and curriculum for this understanding. I'm creating different curriculums of understanding for different topics, for different reasons, for different people according to one's path and their calling. Like I said, whatever you want to touch upon or whatever you want to build upon, hit me in the email on the bottom and we can schedule once again a private engagement, personal engagement on the Zoom session. If you don't have a Zoom account, just create one. It's real quick and it's real easy. Stop being so damn lazy and get to know yourself a little more better. All right. Let me see. Hold on. What the hell is that? All right. So yeah, lower nature, higher nature, higher nature, lower nature. Okay. The next doorway is the Christ intelligence is the one who does the same things others do, but differently, in a way that has never been seen, done, or heard before. The one who blends in but sticks out at the same time. Now, where this is going into, I guess, the topic of, or the examples and topics of entertainment, like Michael Jackson, for example. Yeah, he danced, he entertained, but he did it in such a way that it was never done or seen before. So he is also known as a Christ effect. He was hit with the Christ or communicated with the Christ intelligence and became the Christ force. Once again, I'm explaining a different aspect of this Christ phenomenon. This Christ thing is one who does the same thing others do, but differently in a way that has never been seen before or done before or heard before. The one who blends in but sticks out at the same time. Okay, this is also how you know that you are on a Christ alignment. You are on a Christ frequency. Okay, It is the one who reveals their self. Basically, when you're looking at, okay, now I'm taking to the scale of weather. You have what is this, spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox or autumn equinox, winter solstice. So spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox, winter solstice. Four things. One thing crosses over into the other. The spring equinox crosses over into the summer solstice. The summer solstice crosses over into the fall equinox, and the fall equinox crosses over into the winter solstice. These crossing overs into one another is the Christ. So not only Christ happens internally, but Christ happens on many different levels. It happens weather-wise. It happens in so many different ways. So the one who reveals their self during the equinoxes and solstice. Now, a lot of things, when you look back, you can Google certain things or look up on your own time and check out the timings or the time that things happen or these Christ-like people became this Christ intelligence or Christ intelligence was present or showed you that the Christ effect or the Christ zeitgeist movement was here in this reality at that time, at these specific points, at these specific cardinal points of time. Once again, the crossing over of certain things. The Jackson 5 came out in December 1969, which is the winter solstice. Okay, during the winter solstice, during the crossing over from fall equinox into the winter solstice. That is not by mistake, that is by divine design. During the solstice, which is during the crossing, during the Christing, the Jackson 5 came out December 1969. So the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson made his first presence during the winter solstice, during the crossover, during the Christ over. That's not by mistake, accident, or coincidence. That is by design. The Christ, which is Michael Jackson, one of the Christ figures that we've seen, came during a Christ crossover. You think that's by mistake? So the Christ force gave birth to a Christ force. In other words, check it out yourself. He did the moonwalk. Michael Jackson did the moonwalk in 1983. You look at the date. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but look at the date. It was in between the spring equinox and summer solstice. It was in between the crossing over from the spring equinox into the summer solstice. Once again, it was in between the crossing. It was in between the Christing, which is why he became the Christ force once again and did something, the moonwalk, which was never heard before, seen before. Okay, it was never heard before, seen before, and has never been done before on that level. Because there's actually black and white footage and video of somebody doing a certain kind of moonwalk, like a dance or technique in Hawaii, and like maybe two other indigenous places that somebody was doing some kind of move where they were like look like the moonwalk, but it wasn't seen on such a global scale. If you want to put that word, whatever global, I'm just using it for you understand what I'm saying at the moment. On such a global scale, such a mega scale amongst the masses. Amongst masses and masses of minds, masses and masses of eyes, masses and masses of people to witness this thing taking place between time and space called the moonwalk. And he did it right in between the crossing over or the Christing over between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. So when I'm saying things like spring, summer, winter, spring, summer, fall, and winter, these are not 4 seasons, but these are 4 Christs. These are 4 forms of Christ. And in between these crossings of one Christ to the next, things happen. A Christ force gives birth to a Christ intelligence, or the Christ intelligence gives birth to its Christ force. And therefore we have Michael Jackson. Therefore we had the Jackson 5. Therefore we seen the moonwalk in between the crossing over or the Christing over. This is not by accident, mistake, or coincidence. Now we have another Christ effect or Christ force that was in boxing called Mike Tyson. Look at the date of Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson became professional during March 6, 1985, during the crossing over of the spring equinox or into the spring equinox. During a crossing over of the Christ intelligence, a Christ force or a Christ force was born. And this Christ force was named Mike Tyson. So I'm bringing this Christ intelligence or this Christ-like understanding from an internal energy, alchemical, spiritual, soulful, biological, genetic, atomical understanding to a weather pattern or a seasonal Christ. So you have weather Christ, you have seasonal Christ, you have quarterly Christ intelligences, 4 quarters: spring, summer, fall, winter. These are 4 Christ intelligences. And during the crossover from one season into the next, from one weather into the next, these spaces are where Christ explosion or Christ people appear, or Christ events happen, or Christ actions take place. Okay, so I'm broadening your Christ understanding. Now, another Christ-like energy or Christ-like force took place in October during the fall equinox or the fall crossing. This other Christ-like force came about in between a Christing or a crossing over into the fall equinox and named itself as Michael Jordan. Look at Michael Jordan, the Christ-like figure in sports. Now we talked about the Christ-like figure in entertainment, Michael Jackson. The Christ-like figure in boxing during a Christing or crossing, Mike Tyson. The Christ-like figure in sports during a Christing or crossing of one season to the next, Michael Jordan. October 1985 during the fall equinox or the crossing over into the fall equinox. So these Christ-like intelligences give birth to a Christ force, which is a Christ entity, a Christ person that is given a name and creates a certain action. An event takes place which has never been seen, done, or heard before. This is not by accident, coincidence, or mistake. This is by divine design. And you also have James Brown, which died during the winter solstice or the crossing over of the winter solstice. And also when he came out as well, look at the crossing over or the crossing over when he popped out, because that also adds up in the lines with the popping out of the intelligence of the Christ intelligence, of the Christ force, and the Christ person, the Christ entity that had a certain skill that took place between time and space under an industry called entertainment. You're going to line all this up. It just goes on and on and on. I have a whole list. Not going to go through all that at the moment. Okay, so just understand that at the moment as we go forward. There's not a lot left. The next doorway is there are 4 Christ cardinal points during a solar cycle, which is what I just touched upon. Spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox, winter solstice. Weather, what we know as the word weather, is the word wither, meaning as the weather turns into the next weather, meaning as the body withers away into the next body or the glorious body or the light body. The being chemistry alchemizes into the crystallized Christ formula. Now, when I say wither away, it doesn't necessarily mean death. The being can do it while it's still in the body as well. Okay. Whether is the word wither, meaning wither away, something to wither away and turn into the next new aspect of itself. So we have 4 Christ cardinal points during a solar cycle called the spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox, winter solstice. These are 4 Christ cardinal points during one solar cycle. So you see you have Christ within the solar cycle. What does that mean? What is that saying? That means that subliminally something is saying that what is known once again, like I was saying before, as Christ or the Christ intelligence exists within the soul. 4 cardinal Christ points within one solar cycle. It's the same thing as saying that Christ or the Christ intelligence exists within the soul. Okay, it's all in your face. It's right here in your face. Now, um, this is when the agenda is when there's an agenda out there to keep track of a Christ person popping up or a Christ-like event or something taking place that's going to be Christ-like at some point. Some people like to keep track on this Christ-like energy or this Christ-like force when it takes place. And they try to see this happened that date, that's going to happen that date. That happens that date, and that's going to happen that date. That happened that date, so that's going to mimic and happen that date. You got to keep track of when this Christ-like figure comes out, because when this Christ force is here, the Christ intelligence will pop out as another Christ-like person. Okay. So with saying that, I say that to say this. The track keeping of a possible Christ activity or Christ experience or Christ existence is a certain form of study or study guide. It's a thing to keep track of to see if it has a pattern or patterns, a cosmological pattern, an astrological pattern, and and a biological pattern. So some people like to keep track of or track keeping of a possible Christ activity or Christ experience or Christ existence. And this is known as, or what is known as, you could say eschatology, which is once again the end of days or the end of a phase or the end of an age or the end of a way of thinking or the end of a way of being. You see, so this is also other ways of understanding. I want to get more deeper on it, but I don't want to be a spoiler to my classes and what I'm creating. A PowerPoint presentation. That's what I meant to say. That's the damn what I was talking about. I'm creating PowerPoint presentations with pictures, information, gnosis, insight, all kind of things. It's going to be an explosive class, explosive classes. I'm already signing people up for it. If you want to also get on the list as well, get in touch with the email and let's have these experiences. Let's not make the class such a, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be insane. But let's make this more of an internal experience rather than an external entertainment. Okay. I'm gonna hold your attention. I'm definitely gonna catch your interest because this goes in many different directions, many different advantage points this gnosis goes in. But always keep in mind that you want to make this an internal experience because you're trying to make the quantum leap. You're working on your transcendence, not on your recycling, not on your carnation or your reincarnation. Your main goal and agenda should be to transcend, to graduate, because this is not life. This is God school or Titan school, if you want to be more exact. Because once again, I got passed down from the elders that you're not necessarily a God, you're a Titan. Okay, I gotta give that. I can't take credit for that. I give that credit to the elders because I learned that from not understanding. But I understand when we call ourselves, we say, "Yo, I'm God, I'm God, I'm God." I get it. I understand it for the sake of conversation, the sake of knowledge, and all right, no doubt. You know what I'm saying, but like speaking the words of one of my classmates, Pan. He said, technically, you're a Titan. You're not a God. You're a Titan because Titans actually gave birth to gods or created gods. Anyway, whatever. I understand what you're saying. Let's keep on. Next doorway is there are holidays during Christ's cardinal points. Now, this is why we have holidays. Why do you think these holidays are in between these crossing over from one season into the next? From one crossing over, from one crossing over, why holidays are implanted during these times. The spring equinox is Easter. Summer solstice is Independence Day. Full equinox, Halloween. Winter solstice, of course, we all know Christmas. It's not by coincidence, accident, or mistake that these holy days or this holy phase or this holy age are created during the crossing over or the Christing over from one season into the next. It's not by mistake, it's by divine design. You're caught up in holidays and buying and purchasing and shopping in the external and the vanity, that you are not going internal. And that's by design. There's nothing wrong to it, there's nothing right to it, there's nothing bad to it, there's nothing good to it. It's however you navigate is how you navigate. Fine. But it doesn't hurt to know something a little more extra. The next doorway is the Christ understanding died on the cross. He died on the cross. When they say died on the cross, is really died in between crossings, or the blackness of the cosmos in between a solstice and equinox. So yeah, it died on the cross. Because remember, the word die also means dye, like how people dye their hair. It means black or dark complexion, dark pigmentation. So died on the cross just means the darkness, the crossing over of a darkness, or the dark crossing. That's what died on the cross means. See, so you crossed over in your subconscious mind. You crossed over in your pitch black intelligence. You crossed over into your dark matter consciousness. That's died on the cross. You did die on the cross. Or you became the color of dye. Or you tapped into the intelligence of the color of dye and became the crossover effect, which became the Christ effect. Okay? It's another way of understanding. Next doorway is you actually have global Christ. Now I'm going, like how I made examples from the internal to the external, from the micro to the macro. I'm giving the macro explanations of all the crises and then bringing it internal to the internal crisis, or the personal crisis. So we have many of Christ's events, many of Christ's actions, many of Christ's things, Christ's activities that take place. You don't zoom it on a person, on one person. That is garbage. Christ is an intelligence, the Christ effect, what this video is about. So you actually have global Christ, international crisis, state crisis, society crisis, music industry crisis, Hollywood crisis, entertainment crisis, or Christ-like energies, environment Christ intelligence, job Christ intelligence, family Christ intelligence, home Christ intelligence, private Christ intelligence, relationship Christ intelligence, known Christ intelligence, and unknown Christ intelligence. In other words, wherever there is order, a Christ will soon appear. A chaos will soon appear. Wherever movers, shakers, transformers, and converters are present and active. Christ intelligence, or the Christ effect, is action, activity, events. Like I said, just an example, when I said relationship crisis, means that somebody can have a Christ-like effect during a relationship and they end the relationship. That is a Christ force taking place, a crossing. Instead of being with the person, they crossed over into doing else, or being elsewhere, doing something else. They crossed over from that orbit that they share with somebody and left that and became the crossover intelligence. Because something may have happened internally in their mind, or maybe they just got, just the relationship or the union wasn't working out. And they got an enlightenment. Something told them, leave, part. That's also known as a Christ-like action. So we have Christ, this Christ intelligence, or this Christ understanding on many different platforms of understanding. The next doorway is Christ is a crisis, right? What is known as a midlife crisis. And the midlife crisis is a psychochemical transformation taking place for the acceptance of a new crystallized reality. They're trying to find an identity. They don't know who and what they are, and that who is very healthy to have the what effect on you, the Christ effect, the effect of what. So the cause of the who actually can sprout the effect of the what. because the what is actually the true foundation of what you of your being. You're a what acting as a who. Like I said, we're all hidden in plain sight. We're actually the invisible intelligence, the translucent intelligence. Okay. The next doorway is, this is biology at the moment, the thoracic spine. The thoracic spine, which is the joining of the brainstem and the spinal column. This is the understanding of the 12 disciples or the 12 disciplines, which is actually 12 disciplines or 12 disciplinings. The discipline, the zodiac, the zodiakias, the intelligence of the zodiakias, the intelligence of the cycle or the circle, to come out of the circle and into the cycle. The thoracic spine, which is the joining of the brain stem and the spinal column, has 12 nerves. Once again, I'm always bringing you back to the internal, or anything 12, or anything Christ-like. Everything is inside of your body, inside of your chemicals, inside of your energy work, inside of your mind, inside of your genetics, inside of your cell or your cells, inside of your mitochondria. The brainstem joining, which is joining the brainstem and the spinal column, has 12 nerves. You also have the mythology of the 12 titans, dealing with Zeus and Hades, Greek mythology, which is actually Eastern Horn, Alkebulan mythology, which is known as Ethiopia, which was primarily called before that Abyssinia. So you have 12 nerves. You also have 12 titans in mythology, which is also connected to the 12 archons. It's like they're talking about the 12 tribes, is nothing but the 12 suns, 12 planets, 12 signs, 12 months, the 12 apostles, the 12 disciples, 12 numbers on a clock, 12 cranial nerves. And I'm going to touch upon this in the next video, dealing with the biology and the anatomical understanding of the Christ-like force and the Christ-like intelligence and the Christ-like presence, the Christ effect. Christ effect. Okay? All of this is internal. Okay, now, these are other words that Christ is connected to, or Christ derives from. You have a word called chrysalis. A word called chrysalis. The definition of chrysalis is a transformative state or quiescent or potential, which is basically a stage of being or a stage of growing, a stage of growth. Once again, Christ, right? You come into the knowing. Something is called forth. Something gets called forth. Something comes forth. Something anew happens from the old you. Something anew you arises from the old you, which is once again transformation and conversion. The definition of the word chrysalis is transformative states, the stage of growth. Another word called chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum is, the definition is bright, cultivated, long life, and rebirth. That says Christ all over it. And this is a word called chrysanthemum. So we went by the word chrysalis. Now we're talking about the word chrysanthemum, which is all the same word as Christ and all related. It means cultivated. It means long life. It means rebirth. It means bright. It means transformation. We also have another word called chrysolite. The definition is gemstone, or what it is a gemstone, a gold stone, a glory, authority, and power. Mineral, glory, Christ-like. The gold stone, the shining, the crown. Once again, which is the explosion of an implosion, alchemically, genetically, atomically. Another word called chrysalism, which means tranquility and peace. Wasn't Christ like at peace? Wasn't this person, so to say, in the book, was in tranquil nature? It had to be, to come up with all these ways of talking and speaking to its peoples and its disciples, so to say. It had to be in a certain kind of tranquil and peace and centered and balanced state of mind and being to even have these epiphanies or these prophecies or these premonitions. Okay? Another word that's related to Christ, or the word Christ, is also Chrysostom, which means golden mouthed. He spoke value. The Christ spoke of value. The Christ, what he said, what the Christ said was of worth and value. Gold is of worth and value, right? So golden mouthed. This is the word Chrysostom. The next word is chryselephantine, which means adorned, overlaid, mineral. Once again, dealing with the alchemical and the chemistry and the chemical within your body, genetics, your atoms, so on and so forth. Another word is called chrysoprasis, chrysoprasis, which is also means mineral, which also means variety. The variety was the disciples or the plenty of people. He had a variety of people that it was talking to and communicating amongst. Variety and mineral. Mineral, once again, chemical, alchemy, alchemical, internal, the body, atomical, genetic, energy. Another word is chrysoberyl. Chrysoberyl is a mineral. Once again, another mineral, which means internal. Another word is chrysocolla, meaning mineral. Chrysocolla, meaning mineral, the chemical, alchemical, in the body, internal, insight, innate, insidious, for the Christ effect or the Christ explosion to take place. Another word, of course, we know this word Chrysler, like the car Chrysler, but anybody ever look at the definition of Chrysler? Chrysler means wings, which is why the symbol or the emblem of the Chrysler is wings, right? Angels, once again affiliated with the heavens, once again affiliated with the Christ. Okay, the word Christe, which just means crest. Christe is also the mitochondria, which is the memory, the akasha. Christe, doesn't that sound like the word Christ? And that means the mitochondria, the cell, the chemical. Come on, you got to understand what I'm saying. So these words are very Christ-like and very Christ-related, and they sound just like the word Christ. Once again, these words are chrysalis. The next word is chrysanthemum. The next word is chrysolite or chrysolite. The next word is chrysalism. The next word is chrysostom. The next word is chryselephantine. The next word is chrysoprasis. The next word is chrysoberyl. The next word is chrysocolla. The next word is Chrysler. And the last word is Christe. This is all Christ. They're all different explanations and different examples explaining the principles and qualities of the Christ effect and the Christ intelligence and the Christ force. It has absolutely nothing to do with the person. It has to deal with biology, genetics, alchemy, astrology, cosmology, energy work, spirit, and soul. Where in there you ever hear of a storyline or a person doing something? Or if it was a he or a she, Christ could also a she. Christ isn't it. I'm going to be technical. Okay. Now, just an example of the clock. When we have a clock, the clock, of course, you got 1 through 12 on the clock, right? And Christ, of course, or this Christ-like figure was the 13 amongst the 12 disciples. Okay. The clock is also the word cloak, meaning hidden or covering. So when you look at your clock, you got to say, what are you cloaking? Because the clock is a cloak. So the clock itself means a hiding or disguising of something. What is that clock disguising? What is the cloaking intelligence of this clocking? I'm trying to think if I should share this at the moment. It was actually shared with me from one of the gods I interact with. Um, and the example of the clock that's cloaking something, because it's not about the numbers on the clock. When you look at a clock and you do, what is the number why is it missing something? 1 through 12 is missing. Something is missing of Jesus or this Christ thing, this character started with the letter J, and this Christ thing was the 13. Why is the number 13 not on the clock? But it is on the clock, subliminal. Remember, the clock is a cloaking. What do you mean? How is it 13? I don't see no 13. I just see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see 1 through 12. What are you talking about? 13 is there. It's always been there. This is why the Christ is a hiding effect. It hides inside of you. You have to find it. When you look at the clock, 12 plus 1 is what? Correct. 13. 11 plus 2, 13. 10 plus 3, 13. 9 plus 4, 13. 8 plus 5, 13. 7 plus 6, 13. You understand? The 13 is hidden. The Christ effect is hidden. The Christ effect is hidden. But your skin, your body is the cloaking, which is on a clock called the circadian rhythm or the meridian in the body. So you have an internal clock, a meridian and circadian rhythm within you. It's called the internal clock, but the skin is the cloaking. And you are surrounded by the 12, but the 13 hides inside, which is the Christ effect. I'll see y'all guys next time. Until then, get in touch with me. Let's make this happen and keep moving forward on this path. Pass and share this light to others as well. Am I as I am, most importantly as you are. I'll see y'all next time. Until then, I'll keep you in mind. 1-0.